Let's continue reading about Despereaux today. We have chapter 39, Missing. So you'll recall last time we had Mig and Roscoe and the P delving down into the dungeon, and we learned about Princess P's empathy for Mig and the other things that she has in her soul. Her hatred, her sorrow, her kindness, and her empathy. She's dealing with a lot, the Princess P. They all are, really. But we've got to first look into her heart. And we're going to continue now talking about what's next in the story. Again, it's called Missing. The sun rose and shed light on what Roscoe and Miggery Sow had done. What had they done? Well, I'm remembering that they went down in the dungeon and they were planning to switch Miggery and Princess P out somehow, but also Roscoe is really planning to keep Princess P in the dungeon forever. Finally, Despereaux awoke, but alas, he awoke too late. "I haven't seen her," Louise was shouting, "and I tell you I wash my hands of her. If she's missing, I say good riddance. Good riddance to bad rubbish." Now, as a reader, I can infer Louise is probably not shouting about P, but rather shouting about Miggery, who is not a very good servant. Despereaux sat up. He looked behind him. Oh, his tail! Gone, given over to the knife, and where the tail should be, nothing but a bloody stub. "And more foul play, Gregory dead," shouted Cook. "Poor old man, that rope of his broken by who knows what, and him lost in the dark and frightened to death because of it. It's too much." "Oh, no," whispered Despereaux. "Oh, no, Gregory is dead." The mouse got to his feet and began the long climb down from the shelf. Once he was on the floor, he stuck his head around the corner of the pantry and saw Cook standing in the center of the kitchen, wringing her fat hands. Beside her stood a tall woman jangling a ring of keys. Jingle, jingle, jingle. "That's right," said Louise. "All the king's men was down there searching for her in the dungeon, and when they come back up, who do they have with them? They have the old man, dead. And now you tell me that Mig is missing, and I say, who cares?" Despereaux made a small noise of despair. He had slept too long. The rat had already acted. The princess was gone. "What kind of world is it, Miss Louise, where princesses are taken from right under our noses and queens drop dead and we cannot even take comfort in soup?" And with this, Cook started to cry. "Shh," said Louise. "I beg you, do not say that word." "Soup!" shouted Cook. "I will say it. No one can stop me. Soup, soup, soup." You'll recall, readers, that soup has been banned in this kingdom, and even the mention of soup is a crime. And then she began to cry in earnest, wailing and sobbing. "There," said Louise. She put a hand out to touch Cook, and Cook slapped it away. "It will be all right," said Louise. Cook brought the hem of her apron up to wipe her tears. "It won't," she said. "I won't be all right ever again. They've taken our little darling away. There ain't nothing left to live for without the princess." Despereaux was amazed to have exactly what was in his heart spoken aloud by such a ferocious, mouse-hating woman as Cook. Louise again reached out to touch Cook, and this time Cook allowed her to put an arm around her shoulder. "What will we do? What will we do?" wailed Cook. And Louise said, "Shh, there. Alas, there was no one to comfort Despereaux. And there was no time anyway for him to cry. He knew what he had to do. He had to find the king. For having heard Roscoe's plan, reader, Despereaux knew that the princess was hidden in the dungeon. And being somewhat smarter than Miggery Sow, he sensed the terrible unspoken truth behind Roscoe's words. He knew that Mig could never be a princess, and he knew that the rat, once he captured the pea, would never let her go. And so the small mouse, who had been dipped in oil, covered in flour, and relieved of his tail, slipped out of the pantry and past the weeping ladies. He went to find the king. I'm remembering from last time that the king rejected Despereaux as a talking mouse. He did not want to hear about him or what he had to say. So I'm curious what their relationship will be like when they're both desperate to find the Princess P. We'll find out next time we read, dear readers. Bye for now.